Hi, ClimateX. I'm Mara. I'm here interviewing Quinton. Could you introduce yourself briefly, letting us know what your name, your position, and then tell us briefly what your topic is?
My name is Quinton Zondervan. I am a software engineer and MIT alum, and I currently work as Chief Technology Officer in a software startup, and I spend a lot of time on climate activism, and in particular working on a carbon tax or price on carbon, and so that's the topic we'll be discussing today.
Could you tell us a little bit more about what you'll be talking about in your ClimateX session?
We'll talk about what we've done in Massachusetts in terms of trying to pass a carbon price, and also describe a little bit the background of carbon pricing and why it's an effective strategy for combating climate change.
Not expecting our whole audience to be from Massachusetts or even New England. So what do they need to know going into it, and how could we best prepare?
Right, so it's helpful to understand at a basic level what carbon pricing is all about, and then to understand a little bit about the national efforts to get a price on carbon passed, which have not been successful so far. And then there's different efforts underway in different states to try to build towards a national price on carbon. So understanding that strategy a little bit similar to what we were able to do with healthcare and marriage equality, where in both cases the state of Massachusetts went first, and that helped move the whole nation ultimately towards that kind of a policy.
How have things been going in Massachusetts with the climate tax?
Good. We were not successful in passing the bill, but we did advance it considerably by getting it close to a vote in the Senate. And prior to that, having the first ever hearing on it in the State House, which all serves to create greater awareness around the issue. One of the main obstacles is just that people aren't familiar with it, and so it's still a new thing, and they need to hear about it a lot more and from a lot more people before they'll be comfortable voting for it. Right. So we're kind of building up that momentum.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm also a scientist, and I'm talking in ClimateX, though, about local climate action. So could you, I know that as a scientist, I think that it's very important to be engaged, or as a professional outside of the civil sector, it's very important to be engaged in the community, and that we do have things to bring to climate action. But could you tell us a little bit more about your prior knowledge on this topic and what brought you to working on this carbon tax?
Right, so I've been doing a lot of climate action work in the city of Cambridge for the last 5 years at least. And we're lucky in Cambridge that we have a pretty robust government response already in place, with some fairly accessible ways for people to plug into that conversation and to add to it. So we were able to create momentum here to pass what we call the Net Zero Action Plan, which will drive Cambridge's building emissions to zero over a period of a few decades, but with a real commitment behind doing it. So that's an example of citizen action moving the government to do the next step.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Just that it's really important for citizens to be engaged on this issue. Even in a place like Massachusetts, where we have very progressive policies, it's still very difficult to pass these new laws that help us deal with climate change. And we're already behind, so we need to go even faster. And without a lot of citizen engagement, that won't happen. So it's really important to educate yourself on the issue. You don't have to become an expert, just know enough to be an effective advocate.
So how did you first get involved in climate action? Or what was the first thing you did, and why did you do that?
Well, I guess the very first time was when I was a freshman in college and first learned about global warming, as we called it then, from my friend who was studying biochemistry. And I immediately recognized the extent of the problem and how important it was that we do something about it. And so we looked around on our college campus and decided that what we could do there was to start a recycling program. So that's what we did, and it's actually still operating today, more than 25 years later. So
That's cool.
it started very early for me, but I still continued doing it throughout my career as a passion, because it's just really important.
Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to me, and excited to join in on your ClimateX session as well.
Thank you.